The boy was named Yu-Jin, a high school student with a talent for sports, and his greatest passion was swimming. Every time he attended swim class, his handsome strokes in the water would attract countless fangirls, yet he never once felt his heart stirred by any girl. That day in swim class, however, a drowning girl appeared, and in an instant his innocent youth was shattered. Yu-Jin rescued her in an extremely awkward position, and as their classmates laughed and teased, the girl blushed, thanked Yu-Jin softly, and then fled the pool in embarrassment. Little did she know that her shy, lovely appearance would leave such a fatal impression on the boy. From that day forward, Yu-Jin could no longer focus on studying, and even in class, his eyes never left her figure. The boy's tender young love was like a deadly poison. Once infected, impossible to cure. His childhood friend noticed his feelings and started helping him think of ways to chase the girl, suggesting he pretend to borrow a pen from her to test her reaction. But the girl refused him without hesitation. Her name was Shu Ya, a transfer student who had just arrived a few days ago. And during dance class, Yu-Jin discovered she was left-handed, so he pretended to be left-handed too, all just to be placed in the same line as her. In the moment he grasped her soft hand, his whole body tensed up, unable to breathe. And when he looked at her fair, slender neck and those cherry-like lips, he gulped unconsciously, only to clumsily step on her foot, forcing him to crouch down and wipe away her blood. Watching her storm away in anger, Yu-Jin stood dumbfounded, frozen in place. From that day until the next 3 years, Xiuya never spoke a single word to him until the day before graduation when she approached with a student contact book, asking him to leave his blessings and his contact details. Yu-Jin's face was lit with joy as he carefully wrote his warm wishes, but only after she left did he realize his pen was still in her hand. He chased out of the classroom, but she was already gone. After the college entrance exams, Xiuya, with her excellent grades, went to Seoul for university, while Yu-Jin, with only his sports specialty, could only remain in their city. During his university years, Yu-Jin wanted many times to confess to Xiuya, but every time he dialed her number, he couldn't bring himself to say the words. At last, during summer vacation, when he resolved to visit her in Seoul, he received his military service notice. He left for 2 years, and on the very first day he returned, he finally gathered his courage to call her, but as soon as he heard her voice, he faltered again. Just as he was about to hang up, his childhood friend grabbed his hand tightly and in desperation even bit him hard to keep him from dropping the phone, and such a friend, the story laughs, should be given to every viewer. Yu-Jin froze in shock and had no choice but to keep talking. But at the critical moment, his awkwardness betrayed him. The confession lines that had played in his head thousands of times turned into clumsy nonsense. Just as he regretted messing up again, Xiuya suddenly invited him to meet at the school gate the next day and promised to return his pen. This sudden twist left Yu-Jin stunned, and only after a long pause did he come back to himself, leaping with excitement on the street, unable to believe he could see the girl he loved again. The next morning, Yu-Jin dressed carefully and arrived early at the gate, drawing glances from passers-by. He thought it would be a perfect reunion, but his stiff words once again made the atmosphere unbearably awkward. After returning the pen, Xiuya did not leave, as though she too had much to say but could not find the right words. Yet Yu-Jin, being the straight and clueless boy he was, nearly let the chance slip, until at the last moment, he called out to her as she turned away. He brought her to a Western restaurant, a place perfect for a couple's date, though he himself had never been there before. Nervous and clumsy, he copied her way of holding a knife and fork to cut the steak, trying hard to keep the conversation alive, his silly, cute appearance finally making Xiuya laugh, and with her laughter the tension melted, and time passed like they were old friends who had met after ages apart. Soon evening came, and as they prepared to part ways, the sky suddenly opened with rain. Wanting to hold on to their precious time, even when his bus arrived, Yu-Jin insisted he would wait until Xiuya boarded first. She too cherished the moment, refusing to get on with the excuse of the bus being too crowded. Though they exchanged few words, both could feel each other's hearts drawing closer. Only when the very last bus came did they reluctantly part. As she boarded, Xiuya said she would return to Seoul tomorrow and might not come back until winter break. Yu-Jin wanted to say something, but the doors had already closed. As she sat down, she heard passengers talking excitedly about someone outside, and looking out the window, she was shocked to see Yu-Jin chasing the bus through the rain with all his might. Her eyes filled with disbelief and emotion, and the bus driver, moved by the sight, was forced to stop. The instant the door opened, Yu-Jin rushed on board, his silly drenched figure imprinting forever in her heart. Although the scene looked ridiculous, it touched Xiuya deeply in that moment, and she stood up to gently wipe the dye from Yu-Jin's forehead with her sleeve, before nodding happily and agreeing, and finally the seed of love sprouted between them. From then on, their feelings grew rapidly, and they had their first date, going together to the cinema. And the excitement of this first time was so overwhelming for Yu-Jin that he completely forgot the images on the screen, focusing only on the girl beside him. After mustering courage again and again, instead slipped her hand into his pocket to hold his soft hand, and at that moment Yu-Jin could no longer hide his smile. After that, their time together became sweet and happy as he took her cycling to watch the sunset, climbing a slope to see an outdoor movie in the distance, and hearing her heartbeat, Eugen could not resist stealing a kiss. Though awkward and unskilled, that irresistible moment left them both lost in their feelings. When he finally sent her home, she handed him a token of their love and urged him not to get hurt during training again. Fueled by her strength, Eugen was filled with determination for the national team selection. Because the power of love is limitless, it can make someone's fighting spirit burn endlessly. From then on, he trained day and night, his figure always present in the pool even at midnight, vowing not to let her down. But the body has limits, and his overwork caused his pituitary gland to fail, leading him to collapse uncontrollably under stress or fatigue, an irreversible condition. Even after professional treatment, he did not improve, and he was forced to abandon training, not only ending his career but knowing his daily life for the next 9 years would be severely affected. The blow left him unprepared, instantly draining all his spirit, turning the once sunny boy into a broken man. To avoid dragging Shuya down, Eugen tearfully broke up with her, and though she said nothing, she turned and left in tears, and when she was gone, he could no longer keep up his strong facade, his heart splitting like a knife tearing it apart. In the days without her, the man who was once filled with fighting spirit lost all motivation and sank into despair, until one day he could no longer hold back his longing and decided to see her one last time. He went alone to Seoul and waited outside her school all day, and when he finally saw her, noticing she had no umbrella, he instinctively wanted to shelter her, but then he saw her get into another man's car and drive away, leaving him sad yet also clear-minded, grateful that she had forgotten him and found her own happiness. He discarded their love token and tried to forget her, and to keep her from worrying, he decided to move away from the city and disappear forever from her world. He thought their love was like a kite whose string had been cut, never to return, but then, while moving, he received a phone call that made him think of that angelic girl again. After much thought, he decided to meet her at the train station. When Shuya saw him, she ran into his arms, leaving him stunned. And before he could question it, she told him not to worry, that they would always be fine because fate had already arranged everything. In that moment, Eugen no longer held back his heart and embraced her tightly. And soon after, they married and built their own perfect family. But heaven was cruel and did not let this couple escape suffering, because not long after giving birth to their son, Shuya fell ill and passed away, leaving only father and son to rely on each other. The boy always remembered the fairy tale of the kingdom of clouds his mother told him, where souls go after death, watching their loved ones every day with tears until the rainy season comes, when they secretly take the train of raindrops back to the human world, pass through the tunnel, and meet their most missed family at the station, staying for a while until the season ends, then returning again to the clouds when the rain sprites call them. This was the promise his mother made before parting, so since the day she died, the boy longed for the rainy season every year. Whenever he told this story, Eugen only smiled gently, unwilling to break his son's hope, but at night, he hid under the blanket, watching videos of his wife and crying until he could hardly breathe. Soon, the rainy season came, and the boy, excited, put on his raincoat and, ignoring his father's attempts to stop him, ran straight toward the station. Eugen could only follow behind as they passed through the tunnel and arrived at the long-abandoned train station. The boy searched every corner of the platform but could not find his mother's figure, finally sitting under the eaves in disappointment, and Eugen could only comfort him, saying perhaps today she was busy and could not come, but next time she surely would. Yet on their way back, a familiar figure suddenly appeared in the tunnel. On the way, the boy, missing his mother too much, ran straight toward that familiar figure before Eugen could react, and when the woman raised her head and they finally saw her face clearly, Eugen collapsed to the ground in shock. Yet the saddest part was that Shuya seemed to have forgotten both father and son. Eugen was stunned, unable to believe this could be real, until he heard his son calling him and snapped out of it, and in the end, they brought Shuya home. The boy held up the photos he had taken with his mother, excitedly introducing her to their home and showing her the picture he had drawn especially for her, hoping to awaken her memory. But Eugen secretly pulled his son into the bathroom, afraid that if she remembered the story of the kingdom of clouds, she would leave them again. And so father and son made a secret pact to keep it hidden. That night, Eugen lay awake, turning over and over, unable to sleep, unable to believe everything that had happened was real, until he went to her room and touched her familiar face. And only then did he feel it was no dream, that the day's events had truly happened. Shuya's return brought life to the broken home again. Father and son felt warmth once more and regained hope for the future. But within days, they noticed something different about her. She seemed to be a completely changed person, becoming violent and even ruining the tteokbokki she once made so well. Yet seeing her step out of the bathroom, that familiar feeling rose again, as though fate itself had tied them as a family. And slowly, Shuya began to develop deep affection for father and son too. They went on happy outings together, played by the river, made wishes in front of the Sangsingdui statues, all hoping their family would always be safe and healthy and never separate again. At dusk, the father carried them both on his back as they walked home, though their their weight tired him, the happiness filled his heart, and he wished he could carry them forever. But the strain overwhelmed him, and he fainted upon returning home, and only then did Shuya hear from him about the injuries he had suffered. And as he spoke, her forgotten memories began to return piece by piece. They longed to keep living this way, but fate already had a plan. Soon after, Shuya discovered their son's diary in their secret hideout and finally learned the truth about the Kingdom of Clouds, that she had come at the start of the rainy season and would have to leave again on the last day. Seeing the calendar, she realized her time with them was short. From that day, she began preparing for her departure, teaching her son carefully how to take care of himself, how to bathe, how to clean the house. And when she watched videos of her husband and son from younger days, the warm and happy images made her cry, unable to bear leaving them, wishing she could stay forever. Watching his beloved cry so desperately tore Eugen apart, and to stop her from leaving, he spent nights hauling branches from far away with his friends, piling them to block the tunnel's entrance, not knowing if it would work, but believing it was their only chance. Yet fate crushed his efforts, as a sudden storm washed everything away the next day, and his son, desperate to stop his mother leaving, even dirtied a neighbor's father's car. But instead of scolding him, Eugen hugged him tightly, knowing his son only missed his mother too much, just as he himself did. He wished he could find a way to keep her, and though he knew she would eventually leave, he loved the rain now more than ever, because as long as it fell, his beloved woman would stay. Then the school held an arts festival, and Eugen and Shuya promised their son they would both attend. But an accident forced Eugen to save a drowning tourist, leaving Shuya to go alone. At the event, all the children happily shared their dreams. Some wanted to join the national football team, some to become singers. But the boy's dream was unlike any other, leaving the entire crowd silent. Impossible to believe such words could come from a first grader, while Shuya was already crying uncontrollably because, for him, his only dream was for his mother to stay by his side forever. Happiness is always short-lived, and even as they treasured every moment together, when the sun rose, the rainy season ended, and seeing her shadow in the sunlight, Shuya knew it was time to leave. She did not say goodbye to them, instead walking alone toward the railway. At the same time, her son ran home, searching for her but finding only the story of the Kingdom of Clouds left on the table, and then he understood his mother must have gone to the station. Seeing the tunnel entrance filled with branches, Shuya knew Eugen had done it all for her. She wished she could stay, but reality forced her on. Stepping across the piled branches, she walked slowly toward the end of the tunnel until behind her came the broken voice of her son calling out in despair. The sound of her son running toward her made Shuya's heart ache to the extreme, and she hugged him tightly, unwilling to let go even for a second, wishing time could freeze forever in that moment. At the same time, Eugen was riding his bike at full speed, desperate to see the woman he loved one last time, but rushing too fast, he nearly collided with a truck at an intersection and crashed to the ground. Though he narrowly escaped with his life, he fell hard, yet he ignored the pain and staggered toward Shuya, pushing through with sheer will until exhaustion struck him down and his illness flared, leaving him unconscious on the ground. In his haze, he remembered that night's promise with Shuya, and his determination pulled him back up. Perhaps heaven pitied this broken man because at the very last moment, just as Shuya was about to vanish into the end of the tunnel, Eugen arrived, meeting her one final time. They did not embrace passionately, nor exchange lingering words, but in their eyes, everything they felt was already clear, and in that moment, they no longer feared life or death because they had already given each other everything. Though Shuya's return to his life was brief, her presence by his side was enough for Eugen's whole life. After her departure, Eugen and his son no longer sank into despair because they knew even if Shuya was not physically with them, she had not left. She was always watching them from the Kingdom of Clouds. With her love in their hearts, father and son lived on happily, carrying her memory as strength. At night, reading the diary she left behind, Eugen finally understood everything, that she had always liked him. From the very first time they met on the way to school, she had been drawn to the shy, sunny boy, and when she realized they were in the same class, she rejoiced secretly while falling deeper for him. Their connection began when she nearly drowned, and he saved her, pulling their lives together. Later, during dance class, when she learned Eugen was left-handed, she pretended to be left-handed too, so they could be grouped together, and the first time her hands were held by the boy she loved, her heart pounded wildly. Though embarrassment ruined the encounter, leaving her too ashamed to face him again until graduation day, when she gathered her courage to ask him to write in her contact book. She secretly kept his pen just to have an excuse to contact him someday. And though she wanted to call countless times, her shyness always held her back, until that day when Eugen called her first. She pretended to be calm, but inside she was trembling with excitement, and so she invited him to meet at the school gate the next day. Though their meeting was awkward, awkward, the moment he asked her to stay, her smile could not be hidden. And realizing he liked her too, she embraced the love she had waited for, and their relationship quickly grew until they officially became lovers. But happiness was short, for one day she suddenly received a letter from Eugen saying he would never see her again. She rushed from Seoul overnight, only to learn he wanted to break up, and she cried all night beneath her blanket. The next day at the school gate, she saw his lonely figure leaving and knew he had never truly let her go. So she ran after him in the rain, only to be struck by a speeding car at the intersection. In the last moment before losing consciousness, his face was still in her mind, and when she woke again, she discovered she had been carried into the future, 8 years ahead, where she met her future husband and her 8-year-old son, but lost all her memories. Though everything felt unfamiliar, with father and son at her side, she fell in love with them again, as if fate had arranged it long ago, and once more she loved the same man. Yet, in the end, they parted again, and when she opened her eyes once more, she found herself lying in a hospital bed, the doctor telling her she had been in a coma for 6 weeks after the accident, and everyone thought she would never wake again. But by some miracle she had. At first, she thought everything she experienced had been just a dream, until she returned to Eugen's old home and felt it was all real. Perhaps heaven had given her a second chance. Without hesitation, she dialed Eugen's number, and thinking of seeing him again made the air taste sweet and fresh for the first time. They agreed to meet at the train station, and when they finally saw each other, she rushed into his arms, holding him tightly as if to never let go again.